Around 3 months ago my game was just a bunch of colored squares and test rooms. Since then a lot has changed and now it's starting to look like an actual game. In this video we look at the journey so far and the challenges we are headed for next. Now I have some huge plans for the game, so stick around. Now since the first episode a lot has changed and almost nothing has kept the same. I think the only thing that is still the same is the walls, and even those have gotten some small updates over time. Around 1 month in we got these better animations and sprites and textures for the player and all of the enemies in the game. And those I've kept the same since I really liked how those turned out. The level generator has gotten updates I think almost every week of the whole development time. And at the moment I think the layouts are really nice. I don't have almost any improvements I would like to make to the layouts of the level generator. But there is still a lot of work to do on placing the different decorations in the rooms. And also I still want to add a lot more decorations to the first level. Since the last devlog I've added biomes to the game. Previously there was basically just one biome that was generated for the level, but now I can add as many biomes as I like. Currently there's just 2, but it's really easy to add more. There's this spider cave where the ground is covered in kind of a spiderweb texture. All of the wooden pillars and some other assets also are covered in spiderweb. Yeah, the barrels. And then these cute spiders are roaming around in the spider cave. And I really like how they turned out. They, I think, look super cool, and the death animation is really funny to me as well. Then there's the haunted cave, which has rats and these undead miners, if we can find any. And this is kind of the base biome of the game. There's none, so let's generate a couple more levels. Yeah, here you can see this lantern carrying skeleton. Yeah, and there are these minecarts as well. And I want to add a lot of other mine related decorations to these caves. And yeah, so the game is basically about exploring the caves and mining all the resources in the caves and battling your way out. And once you clear the enemies from the rooms, then you will find an exit that will lead you to the next level, so you can go deeper into the caves. Now the first level is really easy, but that's by design. In these roguelikes and roguelites, it's really... The game is supposed to be fast-paced, and a slow tutorial can really kind of... I think it can really worsen the first impression of the game. I think a big part of why these games are great is because they don't hold your hand and they just push you into the action and make you figure it out. So having no like tutorial where you're being told what to do, but instead you're being just thrown off into the first easy levels to figure it out on your own. First of all, it makes the first impressions better, but also it really gives you the feeling of figuring it out on your own. Now as a game developer, I actually haven't played many games in the recent years. But this changed and I picked up Hollow Knight after having it sit in my Steam library for a couple of years. The thing I really liked about this game that I want to include in my game as well is the juice and the particles that fly out when you smash things. Now in my game I also had some nice particles, but the problem is that in Hollow Knight the particles bounce when they hit the ground. For me it was kind of difficult to have them bounce since my game is kind of representing a 3-dimensional world in a completely 2-dimensional plane. So how do I know when the particles hit the ground? And the trick was to simulate a actual 3-dimensional world underneath it all. So I made a ground plane and I made these 3D box colliders for each wall tile. And now the particles can move in 3 dimensions. And then I had to make the shader that does this kind of trickery of converting the height of the particles into additional y coordinate position. Because, you know, the camera doesn't actually render the 3rd dimension since it's directly facing the camera. Now, since the game is about mining resources and then upgrading our character, there's also a crafting system where you can use those resources to craft new items for your character, and so you can get stronger for the deeper levels. And the crafting system works great, but the problem is there's not a lot to craft at the moment. There's just different weapons which have slightly different attack patterns, but I still want a lot more depth to it. And the main mechanic of the game currently is just like hacking your way through enemies. There's just one melee attack and the weapons just have different attack patterns, which is cool and it's fun, but it's not enough. I want to add also other forms of combat, like I want to basically add different skills or equipment that you can use to basically get more out of your character and have more variety in the gameplay. I'm not sure exactly what it will be. I'm probably gonna take inspiration from other games I like. Maybe from, well, Hollow Knight since I've just played it, but also Dead Cells and Nuclear Throne. And I'm not sure what basically the other gameplay combat mechanics are gonna be, but I think I'm gonna experiment and see what I resonate with. So I think I'm next gonna be implementing a lot of different combat abilities from other games. Then after trying each of them out, I'm just gonna see which ones I like the most. So if you have ideas, like what kind of combat mechanics you would like in a melee game, then let me know in the comments below. I'd like to hear your ideas as well. Now let's talk a little bit about the future of the game. I have big plans for the game, and I kind of wanted to take a moment to talk about the next steps and what's kind of in the horizon for me. So the next step is to plan a narrative structure for the game. I basically want the game to consist of around 4 to 7 stages, and there should be some kind of narrative that takes the player through the stages. Like how the themes of the different levels evolve, and how the kind of stories I want to tell through the characters can relate to those stages. That's the idea. It's pretty abstract still, but I want to do some writing and thinking, and maybe in the next few devlogs it's gonna be a bit more clear what I want the story and the narrative structure to be like. And after that, I want to lock in the main mechanics. Like I said, I need to come up with more mechanics for the combat, and that's gonna be a big next step in the game. After that, the stages 4 to 7, somewhere around there. It depends on how fast the game is gonna be. I think the game, like the base game, is gonna be like 15 to 25 minutes, and or maybe a little longer even. I think maximum 40 minutes, but since it's gonna be difficult and it's gonna be kind of a roguelike game, you're not gonna be able to complete it the first try, hopefully at least. So around 4 to 7 stages would probably be good for that length of a game. I think closer to 7 would be good. I do like to have variety in the levels and the themes, or maybe just have some kind of sub-stages. Maybe some stages are split into 2 parts where there's some variance between the parts. And of course, each of the stages should have unique challenges and interesting gameplay. So the enemies should have kind of stage-specific mechanics. So when you get to a new stage, you need to adapt your playstyle to fit the enemies and their patterns. After that, it's about time to design some progression systems. Now these are a little different from the mechanics, but they are somewhat related. Some progression systems can be related to the mechanics. For example, in Hollow Knight, your progression is unlocking the new Metroidvania style skills. Now I don't want to have a Metroidvania style progression system in my game necessarily, but I do think there should be some progression in the abilities and weapons of the player as they progress through the game. Now the story itself, it's kind of related to the narrative structure that I'm planning next, but the story at this point would be more detailed and more the actual story arc and how the story of the character and the characters that the game is gonna have evolves. Now it's a roguelike, so the story is not gonna be too deep, or at least it's not gonna be like a story-driven game where you're actively learning the story at every moment of gameplay, but the story is gonna be more little glimpses of a story. I still want the story to be fully developed, but the player is only going to learn about the story in small glimpses in between the levels, and as they find new stuff, new like NPCs and new points of interest throughout the levels. And finally, I need to design some kind of meta progression systems. This will be unlocks that you get from completing things in the game, from finishing runs with different characters, and then also later on, maybe after release, some kind of prestige system or a kind of a loop system where once you've finished the game, you can unlock a more difficult mode where you can really challenge yourself. Now that's like real far in the future, so it's not really relevant at the moment, but it's good to have a long-term vision so you know where you're going in the long run as well. Now that's kind of the long-term idea of where the game's going. In the medium and in the short term, the priority of the game is to get the first level to a finished playable state and have a proper playtest, not just with my roommates but with people who I don't regularly interact with as well, and people who are maybe not as much of a roguelike connoisseurs, since my roommate has played a lot of roguelikes in his past. So in the next weeks and in the next devlogs you can expect more new enemies, more biomes, and more those combat mechanics I've talked about. In the next video I'll probably have at least a few new mechanics that I'm testing out, and once that I may throw in the trash later, but I just want to see and feel how they fit in my game to get a more broad understanding of what the combat is gonna be like in the long term. And right now, in the next devlog, the game will need a proper climax for the first level. So that's what I will be working on next. The first boss of the game. In the next devlog, I'll start turning this into a real fight, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. Now if you're curious about how the weapon system works under the hood, check out my video on the weapon system, and if you wanna see how my crafting system evolved, check out the video on that. See you in the next one.